December session of the ISM Lunch and Learn series. Today we're going to be taking a look at the very new and recently released Sage 100 2016, as well as the ACA Affordable Care Act compliance that is supplied in all the mandatory year-end updates. A bit of housekeeping: we will take questions at the end, and if you can please mute your phones as background noises tend to cause echoes. With all of that, I'm going to turn everything over to Ms. Ty Duncan-Whitcomb from our ISM offices in Virginia, who will be presenting today. Ty, thank you, and it's all yours.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to what's new in version 2016. And then we're also going to go over the ACA compliance information that is out there from Sage. So I'm going to briefly go over that also, just so you're kind of familiar where it is in Sage 100. It is in your version 2013, 2014, 2015, and 2016 versions. Some of them, for you to be able to get ACA included in your system, you potentially are going to have to put a service update on your system. So, and it will give you that new functionality in the system. So if you need to do ACA compliance for Sage 100 for this year for payroll, and you do not see it currently in your system right now, please reach out to our support team and they will work with you to get the service update included into your system so that you can have that functionality and you're ready to produce that for 2016 whenever it's that time of the year. Obviously it's this time of the year already. Some people are already actually doing their W-2s now. So that's the information that I will be going over. So as I go along, feel free to stop and ask questions. I'm going to go over 2016. 2016, there's really not actually a lot of new features in the 2016 version. The 2016 version was more of the new look, really more to Sage 100 than anything else. If you're now looking at my screen, that is the new Sage 100 look that is now in the system. We're all obviously familiar with the old look, which was, and I'll show you the old look and then I'll flip over and show you the new look, but this is really the new dashboard this year for Sage 100 2016 in the new release. It's more of a, I don't know if you want to say grid look or a more of a functional look. It depends on what your cup of tea is. This is pretty much what the new grid looks like. So you have the ability here to move different icons around. I can shrink my modules here in the system. I can change modules by clicking on the bottom and get to all my different modules, and then by proxy it just opens up my menus. So the way you're looking at Sage is now a different kind of look and feel. And so I'm going to show you a little bit more about what that is. So with the new Sage 100 2016, the big thing obviously is the new Sage 100, and this new dashboard is called the Sage 100C. So it's called Complete is how they're looking at it, and it is a subscription-based model. So how right now, normally what you do every year is you pay for your renewal every year, and that gives you what you currently have now. Well, Sage is now going to more of a subscription-based model. So pretty much what it is you can either do a monthly subscription, a yearly, or a 3-year subscription now for this new look and feel in the system. And on the 3-year subscription, they are offering discounts for that in the system. I won't go over all the pricing and stuff. If you want more information on that, you can reach out to am@goism.com, and they will definitely provide you that information. But here is the new look and feel. You can go with what we call is the classic look, all right? And the classic look is kind of what we remember the old Sage 100 to look like. So I can simply make those changes myself and change what my look and feel is. So we all remember the old classic look. This is what Sage looks like now. This is where it has been for years. So where I was looking at just now is that new grid look, or that new look that they've now put into the system, which is the 100C. And then out of the box, they give you 3 themes. They give you a standard blue theme, a green theme. You can create your own theme. So if you don't like the look and the colors of what they provided you, you can change those yourself and be able to create a new color scheme for you so it's whatever you want it to look like. So I'm going to switch it back to the new theme just so everybody can kind of see what that looks like. So here's the new theme. This is kind of what it looks like. And so here are my modules. And so I'm just going to go into a few of the modules so kind of you can see what the new look is. So now when you go into AR, this is kind of what the screen ends up looking like. You remember the old way? And this is how it currently looks now when y'all look at your new system. So this will be what the new Sage 100 2016 is in the system. I mean, they have the little alternating colors. It kind of breaks up everything a little bit better so you can kind of follow the rows down a little bit easier, so on and so forth, to make it easier for you to process and so on and so forth in the system. All right. Any questions about the new dashboard or anything that you want me to discuss about that any further?
Is it possible to change the desktop from classic to standard and have it be different for different users?
Yes, this is user specific. So you'll notice when I went in here into my user settings, this was my specific user setting. So I could have went back to the classic theme if I wanted, and everybody remembers the old classic theme, which is what it looks like now. So I could have went back to the classic theme, or I could simply just make it be the green or the blue or whatever. Or if I wanted to create a new theme completely for that is specific to my company, I can create that. You also have the ability in the system to create themes by company. So if you have multiple companies in your system and maybe you don't really want your users to have each their own settings, you have the ability to set up themes by company codes. That way, if you want to have every company to have its own color theme, you can also set it up that way. All right? Any more questions regarding that? All right, other pieces that we'll go through. The other big piece that I won't really go into detail, but that's something separately you can see on our Sage CRM demo. Obviously, there's the latest version of Sage CRM 7.3 now integrates with this piece. And the new piece that they were doing is they're doing email marketing with MailChimp. Is who they're using to do their campaigns, and they're offering some free campaigns for up to 2,000 customers for a period of time for some of that information. The other big piece that has been added into 2016 that people are really excited about, that I also was very excited about, was now in sales order entry, and I'm going to actually show you that. In sales order entry, whenever you had it, you remember in the system, whenever you selected a customer and you had your customer, there was a 15-character limit for the customer PO number. The customer PO number in sales order has now been expanded to 30 characters. So now instead of being limited to a 15-digit customer PO number, we've now been expanded to, we now have the ability to put in a 30-digit customer PO number that is now available for us in the system. Also, what we have the ability to do in the system is we now have the accounts payable aged invoice report. And remember, the aged invoice report used to only in the system, the AP aged only could come as an up and down report. And when I say up and down, I don't know how I want to say that, as a horizontal or a portrait view report. Well, you now have the ability in AP to now print the AP aged invoice report as a vertical report or a portrait report, and it's going to be in point size 6. Or now you can now do it as a landscape report in that it prints sideways, and it now ups the point size of that report to a point size of 8. The other field that changed also in terms of size is in sales order entry and invoice data entry. We now also have the ability in there, whenever you used to put in a check for a customer, you used to be limited to a 6-digit check. The system has now been expanded to where we can now put a 10-digit check in sales order entry and invoice data entry in the system if we're applying that check information in the system. What else is I can think of that is really neat? Miscellaneous items automatically now have the ability to do extended item descriptions. You never used to be able to do that before, but now we have that capability in the system. And I do actually want to show you that. So let me swap over there and show it to you. So now over here, miscellaneous item description, you have now the extended item description, and you now have the ability to do an extended item description. You're no longer limited to that 30 characters. You now can do a miscellaneous code and now have unlimited space, just like a regular inventory item. You now have an extended item description capability in miscellaneous items, and when you do different reports, you can opt whether to print the extended item description or not. I'm trying to think anything else that's major. Oh, the last part, the coolest part. This is the part that we've all kind of been waiting for, actually. Right now, when somebody goes into the system, and you know how if we go into sales order and say, for instance, you create an invoice data entry batch, right? And in that invoice data entry batch, when we put it in the system, inadvertently, it happens. We all know that it happens. Somebody went and put everything into one big batch, and it's now the end of the month, and we now need to cross periods because obviously we might not be posting everything or everything's ready to be posted yet. We now have the ability to take and move stuff from batch to batch. So that is now part of the system. We now can move stuff from batch to batch. So here's my invoice up here. Here's your new transfer document. And let me just go ahead and just force a customer in here because I actually really want to show you all this. Grab a line. I know a few clients have been waiting for this, and you've always been able to modify your system, but not everybody just wants to modify their system just for that to happen. So now up here is the little move batch icon, so I can just simply tell it to move it. I can create a new batch to move it to, and now I've simply gone and moved that from that invoice from one batch to another. So you now have that ability anywhere in the system where you have batches, you now can move documents from one batch to another. So that was another really cool feature that finally got included into the product, and it's now available, and actually that's pretty much the last really big one that I know that we've been waiting on that is now in the system. Any questions about anything that I've gone over so far?
Quick question.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Does the theme on the company override the user set theme, or the other way around?
I actually do not know. We can find out. While I take the other question, I'll go ahead and set it, and I'll let you know in a second. How about that? Who else had a question?
Did they increase the character size of the vendor name?
The vendor name has been increased. That was increased last version, and that was increased out to 50 characters, I think it was. I can pull that for you right now.
Yeah, that's okay. If it's 50, and that'll when we do this update, that'll update us to that also, right?
Correct. There it is right there. It's now 50 characters in there for the vendor name. Yeah, that was at the last version. That was at version 2015.
Okay. Thanks.
So I applied that, correct? So let me just make sure which one did I apply to. So we're an ABC company. I assigned it the standard green theme, right? So let's go into my user settings. And let's say my standard is blue, right? And let's see what happens. Looks like my user settings overrides it. Hopefully that answers your question, Bruce.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Right, awesome. Some of the features that actually came in version 2015, I'll just talk about them really briefly. Obviously, level 3 was introduced. So if anybody's doing level 3 credit card processing, that was introduced in version 2015. Again, the vendor names being 50 characters was there. Now, if you print your GL detail report and your GL detail by source, you now get an out of balance notice there. In general ledger, you now have a one-click reversal. So if you put in a GL entry, it needs to be reversed the next month. There's now a one-click reversal capability in there. And also what was added in version 2015 was the ability to retain purchase order history. So right now in purchase order, it stays out there, and it just depends on how many years to hold history. It holds the information, and then that was it. It just purged it all out. Whenever you did your period end. Well, now in purchase order, they have the ability now for purchase orders, because you either had stored your purchase orders, you got rid of them, and they sat in purchase order entry forever and ever and ever and ever, even though you wanted to keep the history. Well, now we truly have, just like in sales order, we have sales order history, we now have purchase order history. So now purchase orders can be closed, and it goes to the purchase order history inquiry, and that's where you will find that information in the system, and you don't have to go into purchase order entry and retain that information forever and ever and ever in the system. So that was a new piece that got added into the system, along with in purchase order you have the ability to do cancellation codes. So if you put a purchase order in the system and for some reason you cancel it, you can now put a cancellation code in there for why y'all ended up not taking that purchase order in the system. All right. Questions about any of that? All right. If we have any more questions on 2016, I'm going to switch over and just go through briefly the ACA, where that's located in your system, and what that's going to entail for us to be able to make sure that's up and running for the year end for us. All right. So let's talk about ACA. I'm actually trying to make sure, because I think I don't have the piece that I need, so give me 1 second to throw the federal e-filing and reporting on there for you. Oh, actually I do, so perfect, so we can just roll on. I actually do have it, perfect. So, ACA. So the ACA information is in a few places in payroll. So let me just go through all the different places. So there's actually an ACA menu, period. There is an ACA menu. Or you can access it through employee maintenance. So if I come into the system and I bring up an employee, I have a new button down here called ACA. And when I select that ACA information, this is where I can log that information for them in the system. Whether I need to show my operative coverage, and they actually have a lot of the predefined codes, so on and so forth in here, and then I can apply that information if they're eligible for safe harbor, and if for so, I can fill that information. Or if I am provided employer sponsor self-insurance, then I get a new tab in the system that says covered individuals, and I can go through and in here and list then all the covered individuals, their social, their date of births, and for what months they were covered. And if they were not covered, obviously, for all the months, I can just simply then select which months they were or were not covered and get all that information in the system. There are spreadsheets that Sage has provided. And as long as you own the Visual Integrator module, Sage has also provided the Visual Integrator jobs. But Sage has provided spreadsheets that if you have the information and if you don't want to key this in one by one, you can load all the information into the Excel spreadsheets, and then we can just simply import that information into the Sage 100 system so that you're ready for the ACA. So that was one place that you can enter it. You can also just come straight here to the Aca Employee Maintenance, and it just brings up the information right here, and I can just simply go through and list all my employees there. My ACA Employer Maintenance gives me the same information. So all I simply do is come in here and put what year that I'm covering it for in the system, which forms I'm supposed to be using, the 1094C and 1095C, or the 1094B and the 1095B, depending on which one I'm eligible for. And then which policy origin, if I need to fill in this information, I can fill in that information. Whether I'm part of an aggregated group. An aggregated group means, is there other companies and EINs that are all part of a group, or maybe a consortium, however you want to term that you're all going to be lumped together for purposes of the ACA. Then down here you have some certifications of eligibility. So if you apply for any of these, check these boxes accordingly, because obviously it impacts the forms whenever you process them in the system. All right. And then over here on your monthly details, it just simply goes through, and there's reporting that you can run, and I'm going to run it after this, that will take and populate all this information automatically for you. All right. And I'm not sure if this one's set up for 2015 or 2020, but I'm going to run it and we'll find out real quick. So here's the ACA Large Employer Report. It's just as a self-help tool for you. Sage goes through, and this is based off, is at the beginning of the year we had sent out an email, and also last year at this time we had sent out an email to say that if you were required to comply with ACA, you needed to make sure in payroll you had turned on your perpetual history, because the perpetual history is in the system is what is used, that uses those tables in Sage, to populate this report. So I am going to run this report. So it doesn't like it for this time period, so let me move it out. I think this data runs as of 2020. Let's figure it out. See what it runs as of, and then we'll run it accordingly. It does run as of 2020. Kind of interesting, and it doesn't want to run. So I will go back to it and kind of show you what it should have done. So when you go through the system and you run your ACA report here in the system, and if we had ran it for 2020, what ends up happening in the system, it goes through and it looks at all the employees in the system. It then takes the employees that were working at that period of time and in that period in the system, and it will go through and populate that information in the ACA Employer Maintenance for us. What would end up happening is in the monthly detail, it would have looked at the perpetual history and shown us how many full-time employees we had, what was our total employee count, and that information that was in the system. When I said that you need to make sure that you have perpetual history turned on, in your system, in here, in Sage, underneath Payroll Options, right here is the Retain Perpetual Payroll History. This box needs to be checked. If this box is not checked in the system, then your ACA reporting is not going to work. That is the information that we need in Sage to be able to drive your ACA reporting in the system. All right? Let's just try if I go a smaller number. Maybe that will work. Let's see. Nope, and it doesn't want to do it. I don't know why, but it is refusing to do it. In terms of ACA, if you've processed out to the end of the year, what you're going to end up doing in the ACA for the reporting in the system is how you do right now at the end of the year. So you will go to your payroll, you will go to your federal e-filing and reporting, and I'm going to go through and run mines in the system. It's verifying that I actually have the ability to. And what's going to end up happening is here underneath the federal in the system, and I'm going to see if they've released it yet, and they haven't. in your federal e-filing and reporting, what's going to end up happening is this is where you're going to see your new ACA reporting. They have not released the forms, it looks like, yet for in the system yet for the federal e-filing reporting, but this is where you would find that information. Just like you have your W-2 information, this is where you're going to find that same information in the system. And you would just simply process through your payroll like you normally do, and then you would come through here and run your ACA reporting in the system. So when that is finally released, that is where y'all are going to come to find your ACA information. Will be in here for the forms. Don't know why the forms aren't out here yet, but they're not out here and they have not released them out for us to be able to run yet. And I will have Sherry, you have the list of everybody who's on the call, so when we know that they've released these in here to the federal e-filing and reporting, we will notify everybody to let them know that those forms are now out there so that y'all can go out there and look at that information. And you might want to start doing some pre-reporting just to kind of see how your numbers are running. All right.
I will most likely send out an email blast like we have been this month regarding year-end updates, etc.
Awesome. So look for that email, so make sure you're all looking for that email to come from us so that y'all know when that information is out there. All right, that is pretty much ACA in a nutshell. It's more from a setup procedure, and then obviously it populates the different reports and so on and so forth in the system. Does anybody have questions regarding anything ACA? And I will try and answer it to the best that I can, and if not, I will direct you to a source that can get that information for you. Questions about anything that I didn't go over that you probably possibly want information on for the year end?
We are doing a year-end processing webinar next Tuesday the 15th. So if you haven't signed up for that, please do. That's going to be giving you a lot of information, tips, and tricks on closing out your Sage 100 and processing your year-end. Also, too, if you do come up with any questions, please reach out to me at AM for account manager, am@goism.com. Any questions? All phone lines are open. Okay, perfect. Well, Ty, I thank you very much for your time today and sending off this information. We will be repeating the What's New in Sage 100 when we resume the ISM Lunch and Learns in February. Again, please note we only have 3 ISM Lunch and Learns this month. One was the What's New in 2016, which you're attending. We do have a webinar on budgets for Sage 100 this Thursday, and next Tuesday is our year-end processing tips and tricks. We do not hold ISM Lunch and Learns during January, as we know it's a very, very busy time for our clients as well as us here at ISM for year-end issues and processing and updates. So we will be back in February, and I will continue to send out email blasts of important information, so please always look for that. If you're not getting them, I just sent one out this morning indicating what product updates needed to be installed for the year-end IRDs or interim release downloads. If you're not receiving those emails from me, please reach out, send me an email at am@goism.com, and we'll look into why you're not receiving it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ty. Have a great day, and I hope to see you at the next webinar.